Elder millennials, what stereotype aggravates you the most? The lack of respect we get really. Older generations getting upset that we are starting to get into politics at the national level. You'll realize we are in our mid-late 30s now, right? And we straddle the cultural divide. We grew up without the internet and cell phones. Sure, the more well-off amongst us had a computer and internet maybe by the mid-90s, but the younger generation can't grasp how different it was. We spent our formative years with a budding technology and a lot of us figured it out and embraced it. So, why shouldn't we be the ones who are helping to move it forward? We see both ends, the magic of it, because of how new it was, and how ever-changing, and we also know how to fix things. We started with command lines and Unix, Ataris and Nintendos, chat rooms, Ike, some of the first online multiplayer games, thank you Half-Life and Quake, but we also grew up being able to go outside with friends all day without anyone worrying about us. We were the last generation to get that experience. I hate that millennials get pinned as being addicted to their phones, like, always behind a screen, and not interacting with the real world. I for one try really hard to have good phone etiquette, and what I've noticed is, boomers can be really bad at this. Some of the older people in my office and family are the worst offenders when it comes to texting at the table or just checking out on social media. That we don't take our jobs seriously. I had to sit my peer, 55 plus, down and tell him that the millennials he was bitching about were the same age as the very qualified and mission-focused person he's been working with for the past decade. WE''RE' upper management. *ME and colleague in story specifically, not a generalization on millennials, to clarify. The stereotype that a lot of millennials are struggling with money because they are lazy and entitled is ridiculous. Look at the average wage versus the cost of rent, healthcare, and higher education now, versus what it was a few decades ago. Boomers had it far easier than we did, but act like our generation's struggles just boil down to a lack of hard work. Also, the participation trophy meme, aside from being largely bullshit anyway, raises the question, whose generation was *GIVINGOUT* the participation trophies? Why would you blame the kids who received them? Like many, I'm working from home. I'll get a call from my mom, hey, you are not working now, go do something for me. Thanks, working from home is way shitter than going to real work, at least for me. I do fit the stereotype of hating talking on the phone. That I'm a young kid, we are in our 30s now. When we are looked down upon for needing to use YouTube, etc. for learning tasks, for instance. Changing a tire, that our parents were taught by our grandparents, but the former never took the time to teach us. I'm getting really tired of hearing about us lying around expecting handouts and not working. Especially when it's a situation where the person saying it is standing in a room with a lot of millennials, all of whom have jobs, which is every single time I've heard this said in real life. Like, who here is lying around doing nothing? Who's your example? Oh, it's your neighbor's best friend's cousin's son, he doesn't have a job and lies on the couch all day. Okay. As an American, it's basically that we are inheriting a system that nobody trusts us to run. All the people who represent us are 2 to 3 times older than us. The older generations are refusing or unable to retire, which is preventing us from actually entering the job market. The use of the term millennial to refer to the general young person. When people call teens and early 20s millennials, that was like 10 to 15 years ago. We can't afford houses because apparently we spend too much on avocado toast. No, in the 80s and 90s houses were about 3 to 4 times the average annual income. Now it's close to 10, at least in my part of the world. I, for one, am tired of hearing about the things we've killed. Tastes change all the time, this is not new. When someone makes mention of some challenge teenagers are doing, like eating Tide Pods, and people are like, ugh, millennials. No. just because 4 to 5 people did something stupid and then the news decided to take it and run with it and make it sound way more widespread than it is, doesn't mean you get to generalize a whole generation. Secondly, millennials are practically the age of the parents of the TikTok generation. It's not a generic term for any young person doing something you don't like. That we don't work hard. We're the most overworked and underpaid generation. I have a bachelor's and master's and $30k of debt, and I worked 2 jobs while in school and couldn't afford to pay for it. I've been busting my ass for a decade making $10 to $13 an hour, working over 40 hours a week. No benefits. And the younger generation can suck my dick for claiming we aren't radical enough. For the love of God, we are simply trying to survive. That we are entitled. Having worked with the general public for over a decade, I can assure you the overwhelming majority of entitled and rude behavior comes from the over 50s crowd. Edit. Also, they keep telling us to be more financially responsible, but when we are there, like, no, not like that. Can't wait to tell my judgmental extended family that I'm having a backyard wedding because I don't have 30k just lying around. My parents are already pissed about it. Yo, you can't see a rotar IPH on E. And you can't use a fucking telegraph. Technology changes yak whack. That people don't own a house because they are lazy. I have taken the time to explain the loss of buying power, stagnant wages, automation, contract employees, lack of job security, cost of living in other areas, etc. Clay way more into it. We are what the previous generation made us, and we have been shaped by the world we were raised in, and then we are attacked for who we've been perceived to become as a result. It's like getting angry at the puddle of milk because you threw the carton on the floor. I just shoveled like 20 of my elderly neighbors' driveways this morning after snowpocalypse. By Wednesday, while chatting, they'll talk about those lazy millennials like they're still 20-year-olds. Bro, I'm 38 and got 4 kids and own the biggest house of this block. A millennial. Cannot convince them of this, ever. Edit. I know that I'm at the older end of millennial, maybe in a macro generation like Xennial or Oregon Trail generation. But most lists out me as a millennial, with it starting in 81. Generations are kind of bullshit wishy-washy stuff anyways. Plus, right as I was getting into adulting, graduated college, party, and focus on job a few years, then start transitioning into family life around 10 to 12 years ago. That's right at the time when the millennials killing X meme was starting up. As MLFWD's right as I was of age to start doing those things. So, I feel like I'm lumped in there, since when the criticism started, a lot of it was blasted right at my age group at the time. They just have kept blasting the same age just out of college age group as millennials for over a decade now, lol. It really pisses me off how older generations constantly perpetuate the idea that millennials have no manners and are just inherently shitty and rude. I have worked in retail, a call center, and social services for my entire working life, so I have communicated with a lot of different people from all age groups and all walks of life. Without a doubt, there is an absolute and distinct difference in manners between millennials and folks from older generations. Of course, I can't paint everyone with a broad brush, but if I had to list the 100 most entitled, batshit crazy, unbelievably rude people I have ever spoken to, maybe only 10 of them would be millennials. Participation trophies. These were for our boomer parents, not for us. And now we are blamed by them for being entitled, because we got them. You must go to college and get a degree. You don't want to be flipping burgers or changing the oil in some rich guy's car. Asterisk DOES that incurs a lot of DEBT asterisk. These irresponsible millennials and their elitist liberal educations. If they'd been smart, they'd go to community college and transfer/go to trade school. They won't just take a job, any job to pay the bills. They could flip burgers. Why should we pay for *THEIR** mistakes? Being blamed for not buying things. Like, millennials are killing X product line. Welp, the boomers who won't retire are clinging to the top level jobs, so we don't have the opportunities they did to move up and earn more money, so we have to be choosy about the things we spend our money on. Not to mention, most of us are trying to be mindful of our consumerism as a whole, not buying tons of stuff for the sake of having tons of stuff. When millennials do shit that Gen Zers and boomers did, but for some reason we get derided as the shittiest generation to ever get whelped. When millennials take cooking classes, and sewing classes and basic auto repair classes, and other shit our parents were too lazy/busy to teach us, but no one ever talks about that part, we are derided as being helpless, and needing *ADULTINGCLASSES*. When Gen Zers and boomers did literally exactly the same thing, it was celebrated at self-improvement and the American dream, and called *TAKING a class down at the Y/learning annex/community COLLEGE*. That we are snowflakes. Baby boomers can't hear the word boomer without screaming bloody murder, and they can't handle being told they might be wrong about anything without throwing a hussy fit, but they shit on us constantly about some perceived sensitivity. When all the college kids were out partying during the pandemic were called millennials, that was Gen Z. I had family blaming my generation for this shit. 1981 here. The stereotypes are amazing. Every time I hear an insult aimed at millennials I'm amazed and amused that anyone thought it was an insult. An entire demographic dedicated to making sure everyone is doing something they believe in, that we all get the support we need, and putting Applebee's out of business? I'm honored to be counted among them on a technicality.